Hello and welcome to Within the Frame. I'm Han Da-eun in Seoul. North Korea's trash balloon campaign has continued for the 10th time in less than 2 months, with dozens of balloons found across the capital region, including the presidential compound in Yongsan. South Korea, in response, blared up loudspeaker broadcasts in full scale for the first time in 6 years. This as global attention was shifted to a potential presidential race between former U.S. President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, a contest that could significantly impact the regional security dynamics surrounding the Korean Peninsula. Mounting inter-Korean tensions and evolving security dynamics, that's the topic of our discussion today. And joining me now in the studio is Choi Hyun Jin, Associate Professor of Political Science at Kyung Hee University. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me again.
For another perspective, we also have Evans Revere, former U.S. Acting Assistant Secretary of State, joining us virtually. It's always great to have you with us.
Great to be with you again.
All right, Dr. Revere, let's start off with you. North Korea resumed its trash balloon campaign yet again, sending balloons across the border to the south for the 10th time. The South Korean military responded with loudspeaker broadcasts. How would you assess the current level of inter-Korean tensions?
Well, inter-Korean tensions are high. I would add to that, though, that inter-Korean relations are currently non-existent, and those two things are interrelated. In the absence of any bilateral dialogue between Pyongyang and Seoul, and with North Korea having renounced cooperation and ended any real hope for North-South reconciliation, North and South Korea are now dealing with each other solely via propaganda, verbal threats, and trash warfare. That's unfortunate, but that's the reality we face right now. Meanwhile, Pyongyang continues to forge ahead with its nuclear development, its missile testing, artillery fire, and its very bombastic rhetoric. And this, of course, requires South Korea to remain vigilant, to strengthen security ties with the United States, and to keep its deterrent strong and keep its forces ready to deal with any contingency. Meanwhile, the loudspeaker broadcasts into North Korea seem to be reaching a lot of people, and the messages that the broadcasts carry about freedom, about South Korean cultural and economic achievements, and the horrific conditions under which the people of North Korea have to live, all those messages are very deeply resented by the Pyongyang regime. But right now it remains to be seen whether North Korea is going to choose to escalate its response to these broadcasts beyond words and beyond sending these trash-filled balloons. But Pyongyang clearly does not want the loudspeaker broadcast to continue. There is some potential, therefore, for Pyongyang to miscalculate, and we need to be ready for that.
North Korea is now building roads and walls and planting thousands more landmines inside the DMZ as well, reinforcing the already heavily fortified border. So, as you pointed out, it seems to be it's ending all hopes of a possible relationship between the two Koreas. Now, Professor Che, North Korea claims that South Korea's actually before that, one of the trash-carrying balloons landed on South Korea's presidential compound, but nothing dangerous was found, according to the Presidential Security Service. How do you see this, and do you expect South Korea to ramp up its response?
A balloon is just floating with the wind, right? And also, thankfully, it was not carrying any dangerous material. So I think we don't need to be too sensitive that the balloon landed on the grounds of presidential office. But however, it is important to consider that the North Korea might someday send a balloon with a dangerous material, like radioactive substances or chemicals. So from this incident, we can see that it is technically possible for contaminated balloon to reach a critical location like presidential office in Yongsan. So right now, the balloons are harmless, but however, our military should always be ready for any emergencies in the future. So your second question, should we step up our response to these incidents To answer this, it is important to note that South Korea does not want to escalate tension with North Korea. So instead, by turning on our loudspeaker in the DMZ, we are trying to make it costlier for North Korea to continue this provocation. So they will think twice before doing it again. So our approach is basically so-called tit for tat. So tit for tat in international politics means that we react based on North Korean actions. So that means we turn up our loudspeakers when they provoke us, and we turn them up when they stop. So I think this kind of approach helps us manage the situation without making things worse.
So we're yet to find out how the South Korean military will respond to the intrusion of the balloon, but you're saying that a tit-for-tat move will be safe for now because tensions are rising to dangerous levels. And staying with you, Professor Choi, North Korea claims that South Korea's flying of anti-North Korea propaganda leaflets are to blame for the trash-filled balloons. Now, Defense Minister Shin Won-sik said that there is a possibility of North Korea shooting or shelling certain areas where the leaflets are launched, mostly by North Korean defectors. How do you gauge the possibility of North Korea actually forging ahead with an attack?
I don't want that scenario actually happens, but basically I agree with Defense Minister Shin Won-sik. So North Korea might shoot down balloons carrying leaflets or even target the places where those balloons are launched. And also, Defense Minister Shin also warned that North Korea might use other forms of aggression, such as landmine, drones, or GPS jamming, or cyber attack in response to the leaflets sent by South Korean civilian groups. So that's why I agree with Defense Minister Shin. So tensions on the Korean Peninsula are likely to rise further in the near future because loudspeakers are a very big deal for North Korea. So North Korea sees this as some kind of a psychological warfare. And for example, back on August 10 of 2015, about 9 years ago, South Korea turned on a loudspeaker in the DMZ because of a North Korean provocation using landmine in the DMZ area. So at the time, North Korea took this very seriously, calling it a declaration of war. And even they declared a quasi-state of war in the Korean Peninsula if South Korea didn't stop the broadcasts. So, however, after intense negotiation, North Korea expressed regret for the landmine incident, and South Korea agreed to turn off the loudspeaker. But right now, the relationship between South Korea and North Korea are more strained than before. The situation of 1915. So I think there is a real chance that North Korea might react even more aggressively to the broadcasts, possibly viewing them as an act of a psychological war against North Korea. So our military should be prepared for a strong response, as history shows that North Korea takes this broadcast very seriously.
Right. As you pointed out, if there is anything that we've learned about North Korea in the past, it's that it's notoriously unpredictable and that one of its biggest fears is the loudspeaker broadcasts. Dr. Revere, former U.S. President Trump, during his Republican nomination acceptance speech, boasted his bromance with Kim Jong-un, saying Kim would miss him and that, quote unquote, it's nice to get along with somebody who has a lot of nuclear weapons. But Pyongyang's response was rather lukewarm, saying that it's a lingering desire on Trump's part and that Trump did not bring about any substantial positive change to Washington's hostile North Korea policy. What implications does this have for Pyongyang-Washington relations if Trump wins the election?
Well, I think Pyongyang's reaction to former President Trump's remarks was necessarily dismissive. Pyongyang regime does not want to be perceived as being concerned about the outcome of the United States presidential election. But the fact is that North Korea is very interested in the election, and therefore Pyongyang was careful not to slam the door on Donald Trump. I think the regime is intrigued by the possibility of a second Trump presidency. Pyongyang may see some prospect that former President Trump's return could lead to the resumption of high-level dialogue with the United States, and that dialogue, at least in North Korea's mind, would help North Korea advance its agenda. The agenda is familiar. North Korea wants to drive a wedge between the United States and the Republic of Korea. North Korea wants to weaken the United States-ROK alliance and get the United States to acknowledge or accept North Korea as a permanent nuclear power, and also accept North Korea's ballistic missile development program, all of which would lay the foundation, in Pyongyang's mind at least, of laying that foundation for ultimate reunification of the peninsula on Pyongyang's terms. There is much in what Donald Trump has said and done, both during his presidency, at previous summits with North Korea, and in the current presidential campaign, that may give Pyongyang some hope that it can accomplish some, if not all, of these goals. So Pyongyang is watching this unfolding drama very, very carefully, and I think quietly hoping to have another shot at a conversation with Donald Trump during a second presidency.
North Korea said that it doesn't care about the outcome of the U.S. presidential election, but actually they're watching it very closely and they're very interested, and they may be perhaps wanting for former President Trump to return to the White House for a second shot. And staying with you, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is now the overwhelming frontrunner and is looking poised to replace President Biden as the Democratic Party's next nominee. And a lot of attention is now shifting to her stance towards North Korea. Do you expect similar policies to continue if she becomes president?
Well, Vice President Harris has indeed launched her campaign for the presidency, and she is virtually certain to be the Democratic Party's presidential nominee. She has spent her term as vice president supporting and promoting and implementing President Biden's policies on numerous issues, including a whole range of foreign policy priorities. So if there's one word that characterizes what we should expect from Vice President Harris in the presidential campaign, and if she wins in the White House, that word would be continuity, in my view. She'll want to put her own personal stamp on policies and priorities, of course, but I believe that the overall thrust and direction of her policies and her approach will resemble very much what we have witnessed over the past 3+ years. This includes the Biden administration's emphasis on strengthening alliances and building friendships and maintaining military readiness. I think that's very good news for South Korea, especially since the signals coming from the Trump camp suggest that he might continue the hostility that he has often demonstrated towards South Korea, and he might continue questioning the value of the US-ROK alliance, which he has done. But also, as I've said and as I've written, any US administration, whether it's led by Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, is going to need to avoid falling into the trap that North Korea has set that would give Pyongyang the acceptance that it seeks from the United States of its status as a permanent nuclear weapon state. To remind your viewers, even the Biden administration has occasionally hinted that it might engage North Korea in so-called arms control talks or similar dialogues that would effectively amount to such acceptance. I believe Seoul and Tokyo are vigorously opposed to that. So I trust that Vice President Harris is aware of this danger and will avoid it.
Vice President Harris had criticized Trump's conciliatory approach toward North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, arguing that Trump was not responding strongly enough to North Korea's nuclear threats. And when she visited South Korea 2 years ago, she strongly condemned North Korea's provocative nuclear rhetoric and ballistic missile launches during her trip to the DMZ. So she's expected to take a similar tough stance on North Korea. Professor Che, meanwhile, Russia's Vice Defense Minister Alexei Krivoruchko and Chief Prosecutor Igor Krasnov both visited Pyongyang recently. Their visit came after North Korea and Russia signed the new defense treaty. What do we know so far about the outcome of their visit, and what are you reading into their visits?
Right. So the Russian Vice Defense Minister and Chief Prosecutor's visit to Pyongyang are quite timely, especially since Russia and North Korea just signed a new defense treaty. So this suggests that both countries are looking to deepen their military and also strategic relationship. The first aspect is about military cooperation. The defense treaty between Russia and North Korea is likely focused on areas like even joint military training, shared military technology, and even arms sales, just as we saw North Korea provide weapons to Russia in its war against Ukraine. So this visit from this top military official likely means that they are moving forward on putting these plans into action. And the second area is legal cooperation. The chief prosecutor's trip might be about working together more on legal issues. They could be looking to tackle crimes such as digital and cyber crimes and also corruption together and in a more effective way. So overall, the recent visit by Russian officials to Pyongyang shows that a deeper strategic and also military cooperation could impact the regional balance of power. And of course, this is not a good news for South Korea.
Vice foreign ministers of South Korea and China met today in Seoul as the two countries revive efforts to resume high-level dialogue. Although not much has been revealed yet, what were the key agendas? And more importantly, what are your thoughts on China's position amid the perceived threats from growing North Korea-Russia military cooperation?
They had a meeting today, and maybe they are having dinner right now. So there's no clear announcement of the result of this meeting, but I will answer best using my best knowledge. Okay, so I think this meeting discussed various important topics, including our bilateral relationship with China, and also the North Korean issue and other regional and international issues as well. And they also talk about the recent strengthening of security and the military ties between North Korea and also Russia. So I think South Korean government asked China to play a more positive role in dealing with the North Korean matters, especially North Korea is providing military some weapons to Russia, and so they are increasing this military cooperation. And also South Korea also urged China to protect North Korean defectors within its borders so that they are not sent back to North Korea. And also both parties are expected to agree to boost their economic partnership, focusing on keeping supply chain stable. And this meeting is one example of improving relationship between South Korea and China. The relationship between the two countries has been improved recently. For example, on May 14, South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol met with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Beijing, and they discussed how to enhance their bilateral relationship. And it was the first visit by South Korean Foreign Minister to Beijing in over 6 years. So this event, a series of these events between the two countries shows that the growing relationship between Russia and North Korea might actually help improve our relationship with China in an unexpected way. As Russia and North Korea become closer, potentially forming a de facto military alliance, China faces a greater incentive to prevent any accident and also maintain stability in the Korean Peninsula. And this incentive somehow make China to strengthen and also stabilize its relationship with the South Korean government.
Although we can't watch China's role with full optimism, but its role is crucial in dealing with North Korea issues. Dr. Revere, Unification Minister Kim Yong-ho met with U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell in Washington, D.C., where they shared concerns over North Korea's human rights situation and emphasized the importance of bilateral cooperation to prevent the forced repatriation of North Korean defectors. What is the significance of Kim's visit to the U.S., which marks the first by a South Korean unification minister in 5 years?
Well, the United States certainly understands the importance to South Korea of the issue of the forced repatriation of defectors. I think I can say with a high degree of confidence that Washington policymakers agree that defectors searching for freedom and an escape from the repression of North Korea should not be sent back to the DPRK. So Minister Kim's visit provided a very good opportunity for the United States to very strongly endorse South Korea's position on this matter, and also an opportunity to underscore that all members of the international community, including China, have an obligation to protect these people under international law. Both with Deputy Secretary Campbell and others, Minister Kim was also able to discuss South Korea's emphasis on human rights, the welfare of the North Korean people, and how to ensure that information gets through to the people of North Korea. Those were topics that were often overlooked in previous ROK administrations, but they're now on the table for discussion at high levels with U.S. officials and in the various think tanks and others with whom Minister Kim met in Washington, and that's a very good thing. It's a sign of progress.
And that's where we'll conclude our talks today, but we'll be keeping close tabs on the inter-Korean border as well as the dynamic race to the White House. Thank you, as always, Dr. Revere, for your insights.
Thank you.
And many thanks to you as well, Professor Choi, for
you
sharing your thoughts with us. And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in same time tomorrow to join our conversation. Goodbye for now.